3 minutes. That's all it took. 3 minutes to turn a celebration into a grave. By the time the smoke lifted, 57 people were dead, most of them women, many of them children. They had come to dance, to bless a marriage, to share in someone else's joy. Not one of them knew the truth. The woman who soaked their tent in petrol was the groom's first wife. And she hadn't snapped in a moment of madness. She had waited, quietly, for weeks, smiling while she planned it. I'm Vera Nocturne. Tonight, we walk into a wedding that ended in fire and into the mind of the woman who lit it. Our story begins in Kuwait, a small country tucked between Iraq and Saudi Arabia, half the population of London, sitting on one of the largest oil reserves on Earth. Money runs deep here, so does tradition, and in the capital lived a 23-year-old woman named Nasra. She married young, still in her late teens, to a man named Zayed, 13 years older than her. 2 children came quickly. On paper, an ordinary family, a husband who worked, a wife who kept the home. But the surface and the truth rarely match. Nasra struggled. Long before any of this, she battled something inside her. Erratic moods, impulses she couldn't quite control. The kind of suffering that, in too many places, still carries a stigma. No diagnosis, no treatment. No one to tell her she wasn't broken. Just a quiet storm left to grow. And life gave her more weight than most could carry. Both of her sons had special needs. The care was constant, exhausting. The kind of love that hollows you out while you give it. Her husband saw the exhaustion, and he didn't see a partner who needed help. He saw a problem. In Kuwait, a man may take more than one wife, up to 4. It's neither illegal nor shameful there. The custom stretches back thousands of years. So Zayed began to look for a second wife. Picture it from where Nasra stood. She is home, raising 2 children who need her every hour of the day. And her husband is out in the world, shopping for someone new. A matchmaker builds the profiles, the matches are presented, the choice is made, and the new wedding follows fast. Nasra believed she knew exactly why. She believed Zayed blamed her for their children, that he wanted a fresh start, healthy children, a younger wife untouched by all of this. The resentment didn't explode. It simmered, day after day, quietly turning to something darker. Then came August of 2009. Zayed made it official. He had chosen his second wife, and the wedding would happen that very same month. Here is the chilling part. Nasra didn't scream. She didn't throw things. She didn't give anyone a reason to watch her. On the outside, calm, composed, almost serene, because she had already decided. If she was going to make him pay, she would wait for the perfect moment. And what crueler moment could there be than his wedding day? The day arrived in Jara, just west of the capital. Kuwaiti weddings are extravagant affairs. Flowers flown in from Holland, food from Paris, performers from across the world. Hundreds of guests, 2 enormous tents kept separate by custom, one for the men, one for the women and children, so the women could relax, uncovered among themselves. The women's tent was grand, white, built to hold hundreds against the brutal desert heat. But it had one fatal flaw, a single exit, one way in, one way out. Built without proper safety standards, a detail no guest would ever notice, until it was the only thing that mattered. By midday, the celebration was in full swing. Music, laughter, children weaving between the tables, and in the background, Unseen among the joy stood Nasra. She had not changed her mind. Days earlier, she had quietly placed petrol nearby. Now, with the women and children gathered inside, she began to soak the edges of the tent. The desert was unforgiving that day, well over 50 degrees Celsius, bone dry. The kind of heat that turns a spark into an inferno in seconds. The fabric caught almost instantly. Inside, no one understood at first. Then the smell of smoke. Then the panic. Hundreds of people turned at once toward the only exit, and it could not hold them. Bodies pressed against bodies. The way out became a wall. In 3 minutes, the tent was gone, burned to its metal frame. The heat inside had climbed to numbers a body simply cannot survive. There was no time for rescue, no time for anything. When it was over, 41 women and children had died where they stood. Dozens more were carried out with terrible injuries. Over the days that followed, more would not survive their burns. The final count? 57 dead, 74 injured. One of the worst tragedies in the nation's history. Investigators first blamed faulty wiring, then incense coals. But the deeper they dug, the clearer it became. This was no accident. This was arson, deliberate, planned. Both families were stunned. The groom and his new bride were well liked. They had no enemies anyone could name. And the bride and groom themselves had survived. Neither was inside the tent when it burned. But there was one person too close to ignore: the first wife. They found Nasra at home, caring for her children. Within hours of being taken in, before she ever spoke to a lawyer, she broke. She confessed. She had soaked the tent with petrol-soaked rags and set it alight. Then a lawyer arrived, and her story changed completely. Suddenly, she'd been pressured. The confession should be thrown out. The court refused. What followed were months of twists. She was found to be pregnant, and Kuwaiti law forbids executing a pregnant woman. Then, 2 months later, the pregnancy was simply gone. She claimed her husband had arranged for a guard to force medication on her. No examination ever confirmed it. Her defense shifted again. Now she claimed she thought the petrol was water, that she'd poured it in some symbolic protest of the marriage. But an eyewitness came forward, a woman who saw her pour the fuel and then set it alight. Water doesn't need a lighter. Here is what tells you everything about how Kuwait felt. By law, a single victim's family could have waived their right to retribution and spared her life. Just one. Out of 57 families, not one of them stepped forward. She was found guilty, only the second woman in the nation's history to be sentenced to death. The law itself changed because of that day. Wedding tents could no longer be raised without certification and strict safety checks. And there's one final cruelty. The woman Nasra wanted dead, the bride, survived. But the bride's mother and sister did not. She killed everyone except her intended target. 7 years later, on a January morning in 2017, the sentence was carried out. So what do we do with a story like this? It's tempting to call her a monster and close the book. But look closer. A young woman drowning under untreated illness, crushing caregiving, and a husband who answered her exhaustion by replacing her. A system that never once asked if she was okay. None of that pardons what she did. 57 people had their own families, their own futures, and every single one of them deserved to walk out of that tent. The blame is hers and only hers, but it's a reminder of how much damage one untreated wound left to fester in silence can do when no one is watching and no one ever asks. 57 lives ended over the jealousy of one. If this story stayed with you, stay with me. This was Vera Nocturne. Dark stories, real cases. Subscribe and stay in the shadows with me.